following is a presentation of the Belly Up Sports Media Network.
Here's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. It's the season finale. We're wrapping it all up in a nice little bow and getting you ready for Major League Baseball playoffs. That's what's cooking on today's Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. Play ball! Welcome in to an all-new edition of the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show, presented by Righteous Felon Jerky, SeatGeek, and BellyUpFantasySports.com. I'm your host, Vince Stover, and I am joined each and every week throughout the season by the one and only senior writer at BellyUpFantasySports.com and fantasy baseball connoisseur, Kevin Wilson. Hey, Kev, how you doing, man?
We're doing great here, Vince, and sure I'm glad to see you after you told me yesterday that you were without power, and I was concerned because I knew it was probably due to the hurricane, and so glad to see you here, and glad to be talking about some baseball because we got some stuff to unpack on this show. So baseball is not going away, and it's awesome. So I am very excited to get started here.
Yeah, we've had a wild weekend. We were without power for about a day and a half. I think the last people that I know that were out of power have it back now. But yeah, they told us Saturday. Well, it went out noon on Friday, and they said it'd be on by 5. It wasn't on at 5, and then they said it'd be on Tuesday. Like, oh, great. Thankfully, it wasn't until Tuesday. They got it on for us last night, which was awesome for sure. And yeah, I'm sitting here making sure I'm getting my lineup set, making sure I got things going down. I got a lot happening in the fantasy world. So working on all that stuff, of course, as well. And then we were talking about the show, and I was like, well, my goodness, I'm supposed to do a show on Sunday night, and I don't know that I'm going to have power to do it. So glad that we've got power. Hopefully the internet holds up all the way through as well, because in the fantasy baseball world, the count is 3-2. We're in the bottom of the 9th. And down to the last strike. So we're right up to it in fantasy baseball, as the championship will conclude tomorrow after the doubleheader of the Atlanta Braves and the New York Baseball Mets. We'll talk about that a little bit later on in the program. But first, we're going to get to our first segment of the night. We call it our Fantasy Burner. Our Fantasy Burner segment has been presented by SeatGeek all season long. And I have used SeatGeek this year and used the code BellyUpSports. I got $20 off my purchase. And you can do the same thing. SeatGeek.com, all the seats that you need, whether it's concerts or sporting events. Go to SeatGeek.com, use the code BellyUpSports, and get $20 off your purchase. Kevin, we're looking at fantasy playoff. I don't know if MVP is the right word for it or not. I guess we could call it that. But some guys that, not just the regular season heroes, but the guys that over the last basically month have done a great job to help teams get to their fantasy championships and potentially even win their fantasy championships as well. And I don't know. I got a lot of guys here, Kevin, because I wanted to make sure we talked about more than the same people. So I'm going to let you start us off on fantasy MVPs, at least candidates here in the fantasy baseball playoffs.
Okay, so I know that we could talk about Aaron Judge, who won the regular season MVP award and hit home runs in 5 straight games recently. But this is a very easy selection for me because no one maybe ever has had a September like Shohei Ohtani just got done having. And whatever it is you're looking for, okay, because he played in 26 games, he had hits in 18 of them. And at one point, he came to the plate 28 times and got on base 21 of those times. So, and it's just not the big home game that he had where he hit 3 home runs and 2 doubles and 2 steals and incredible game. But for the month of September, he finished with 10 homers, 32 RBIs, 27 runs, 16 stolen bases. So to me, it really came down to only one selection, and that's Shohei Ohtani. And I know that neither you or I had him on our rosters, so he did not benefit either one of us to get, to the end of the championship. But anyone that did have them that were in the finals, they had to be right there to win the championship.
Definitely. So my youngest son, he's in the championship in a league that we were in. Hey man, where are you at in your championship matchup right now? He has Shohei Ohtani, and as of last night, he was currently winning. It was a categories league. He was winning by one category. He's pulling it up right now to look. I think, again, Shohei can't control who he plays. But if you're a Shohei Ohtani owner, you were fortunate in the fact that in the playoffs, he played Miami, and then he played Colorado twice, which is a positive thing. And right now, my son is tied in the categories championship, 8 categories to 8 categories. So Shohei, though, has been a big reason why he's in it still, for sure. And so, yeah, when you get that matchup against Miami, that's where he had the 3 home run day and the 2 stolen bases all in the same game. Then he went up against Colorado and had multiple double-digit point outings, and then San Diego, and then concluded with Colorado at Colorado. Kind of a disappointing last 2 days, honestly, for Shohei. Only 0 home runs in those last 2 games. But obviously a phenomenal performance in September for Shohei Ohtani. Clearly the most dominant of anybody in that time frame, and a phenomenal job, no doubt. I wanted to call to attention, though, a guy that we had been so disappointed in all season long, Kevin. And we're like, I cannot believe this guy has been this bad. I believe you even said to drop him. This would have been back in late July, possibly. I held on to him in a league, and I'm in the championship in that league right now as well. But I had him on my bench for most of July, and that's Julio Rodriguez from the Seattle Mariners. All season long, Julio Rodriguez was just a massive disappointment. Then, all of a sudden in September, Julio Rodriguez becomes the second highest scoring fantasy batter in all of fantasy baseball. Just closed out the season so well. He had a series against Texas back on the 20th through the 22nd. On the 20th, he had 2 home runs, 5 RBIs, 15 fantasy points. He went 3 for 5 in that game. On the 21st, he went 4 for 6 with 1 home run, 4 RBIs, and a stolen base for 14 fantasy points as well. He followed that up with a -1 outing the next night. But then against Houston, he put 12 fantasy points up over 3 games, and he closed out the season against Oakland with just 5 fantasy points. But Julio Rodriguez, especially after the disappointment that he has been all season, to be able to show up in the playoffs and help people out was a pleasant surprise, needless to say, as he was getting things rolling just in time to take a few teams to the championship.
Well, it's interesting that you should mention him because I've got him. I was going to talk about him in the surprise category, especially after, like you mentioned, and I didn't say drop him. I never did say that. You could have easily justified doing so. And in the other league that I'm in, somebody actually did do that, and I picked him up. And as you said, he really helped me in the fantasy playoffs. But so I'm gonna. I guess we're talking about it right now. But so I was really pleased to see for the Mariners. It turned out to be too little, too late. But if you had concerns about Julio, and we all do, we still do, I think. But apparently, them changing batting coaches really helped him out. And so I was having super concerns about him, maybe not even being in my top 50 going into next year. So I'm glad to see this, and I'm going to have to recalibrate that going forward.
Other guys I was looking at here, again, Ohtani's clearly the best when it comes to the batters here. Wyatt Langford had a heck of a September also. Again, a guy that if you had him all season, you weren't shouting from the rooftops all season, but in this final stretch, he really showed up again. Fortunately, in his schedule wise, he closed the season with the series against Oakland and the Angels. were the final 2 series of his season. So that definitely helped. He had a good outing against Toronto earlier in the playoffs. Seattle, he played well against them as well. So I thought Wyatt Langford was a special one come playoff time. And then another guy, Kevin, that was on your roster at one point this season, if I remember correctly. I could be, and I should probably check on this now that I'm saying this. I believe, yes, he was on your roster. You drafted him 76th overall. You dropped him July the 6th at 5 o'clock in the morning. And I picked him up on July the 8th. And it is the one and only Michael Harris from the Atlanta Braves. Another guy who come playoff time. He got injured this year. He had down moments this year, all that kind of stuff. But he was a guy that I grabbed in July and thought, well, let's see when he comes. I had room on my IL, picked him up, put him on the IL. And it's like, well, let's just see what happens when he comes back. And it took some time, but once we got into September is when he really got things moving, and big outing against the Mets before their cancellation or postponement of the rest of their series, a big outing against Cincinnati earlier in the playoffs as well. So Michael Harris and Wyatt Langford are also guys that really came through strong, maybe a little bit more unforeseen in the playoffs than especially Wyatt Langford, than someone like Ohtani, of course. But those are the batters that kind of stuck out to me that I was looking at. Ohtani clearly the top.
Absolutely, clearly. As I mentioned, this is probably the September of all time.
Yeah.
And the Dodgers needed every one of those. Because what was it, a couple weeks ago, as you mentioned, against Colorado?
Yeah.
He comes to the plate. They're losing to Colorado. And it's the 9th inning. And he comes up, and what does he do? Smashes the home run to tie the game. And then Mookie Betts comes up and hits a home run right after him for a walk-off. They lose to the Padres. The Padres are now 2 games back.
It's wild.
And just clawing at their, the Dodgers' inner soul. But then the Dodgers, when the last 2 games of that series, they put them away. Then they swept Colorado. So every time the Dodgers needed something, Shohei Ohtani delivered. So
yeah,
there is no other choice here for the MVP than Shohei Ohtani, DH or no, and because in fantasy none of that matters at all. Right. So Shohei, congratulations, and I've got my Dodger jersey on here, so it's and we're going to get into all that a little bit later, but
yeah,
quite pleased with him, and he's a weapon that is just 1A.
Yeah. All right. What about pitchers in the playoffs?
Okay, so the pitchers, the same 2 pitchers that I argued in the regular season are the same 2 I'm going to argue now.
Okay.
And that is Chris Sale, who unfortunately for him, Atlanta held him back until they have to win a game, so he might pitch tomorrow, depending. We'll get into that a little bit. But Chris Sale and Tarek Skubal had a battle royale going on in September. They both made 4 starts. Chris Sale had 24 innings, 3 earned runs, 3-0, 28 strikeouts, 5 base on balls. Tarek Skubal had 4 starts, 23 innings, 4 earned runs. He was 2-0 with 28 strikeouts and only 2 base on balls. So these guys dominated the whole way, and I think the 2 walks in a whole month is the one that's going to turn me around. So I gave Tarek Skubal my regular season Cy Young Award. I'm going to go there again with just the slightest edge that may ever have been to give an award to here. Tarek Skubal is my playoff Cy Young Award winner.
Wow. So I actually went with another guy, but
Okay.
Let me mention a couple of guys first, and then I'll get to my winner. I felt like it was important to bring up Shane Baz from Tampa Bay. Okay. He had a very good September against Baltimore. He went 6 innings with 5 strikeouts, 1 earned run, 13 fantasy points. On the 11th, he went against Philadelphia, 5.1 innings, only 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 4 strikeouts for 14 fantasy points. Then against Boston, and I picked him up against Boston as well in a couple of leagues. But against Boston on the 17th, he went 7 innings, 2 earned runs, a walk, 6 strikeouts, 28 fantasy points. Then he went again on the 22nd. He went 6 innings against Toronto, 6 innings, 1 earned run, 1 walk, 6 strikeouts for 18 fantasy points. And then again on the 28th, 5 September starts against Boston, 6 innings, 2 earned runs, 1 walk, 7 strikeouts, 23 fantasy points. I had him in 2 leagues and helped propel me to a lead in those leagues. So I thought we need to mention him. Then Nick Martinez, Cincinnati Reds pitcher, has had
Absolutely.
a heck of a September, especially for fantasy owners. He had 19 points against Houston, 29 against Atlanta, 25 against Minnesota, 31 against Pittsburgh on the 20th. And then he closed out the season against the Cubs, going 8 innings, 1 earned run, 3 strikeouts for 17 fantasy points. Nick Martinez was a guy that really helped people here in the playoffs to do some damage. But my winner for the playoff Cy Young Award is Zach Wheeler from Philadelphia. He also went 5 times in the month of September, and he got 27 points against Miami, 24 against Tampa, 28 against Milwaukee, 15 and 7 innings against the Mets, and 24 points on the 28th. That was yesterday against Washington, 11 strikeouts, 2 earned runs, and 2 walks, 24 points. He outscored Tarik Skubal by almost 30 points, and I just thought he had himself the September that you expect out of a Zach Wheeler type, especially with the team once they clinched. I got a little nervous about that. Are they going to pitch him? How are they going to pitch him, normal, or are they going to let him go out there and throw 80 pitches and then have him sit down? And he pitched all the way through it, and again put me in a good position in some fantasy leagues as well. So Zach Wheeler's the guy that I'm going with in this award section for this fantasy season.
Okay, can't argue with that. So as you mentioned, propelled them to the playoffs in the real life. So
right.
And it looked like Philadelphia might be slowing up just a bit, but he said, no, we're going to put me, go ahead and jump on my back. I'll take you to the promised land. So there's really, like I said, we're going to talk about the playoffs coming up. There's some really great matchups we have to look forward to. So I will not argue one iota.
And Chris Sale, when I originally started looking at this information, Chris Sale was on the top of my list. And now he's, like you said, right now he is slated to pitch on Monday. And so that could help, of course. He had a phenomenal September as well. And so we'll see how all that shakes down. Chris Sale has been great. We'll talk about him, though, in segment 3. I've got him on my list down there as well. All right. That's our playoff awards, the MVP and Cy Young awards for the playoff season in fantasy baseball. Again, a reminder to go to SeatGeek. Sure appreciate SeatGeek partnering with us all season long. Again, you can use the code BellyUpSports. You're going to get $20 off your purchase if you go to SeatGeek.com. All right, Kevin, let's head to segment number 2. It's the call to the pin. Our call to the pin is presented by Righteous Felon Jerky. Join the flavor revolution at righteousfelon.com. Use the code STOVE15, STOVE15. You're going to get 15% off your purchase. And even though this show is ending for the season, that code will still be valid the rest of the year. So use it all you want to, save that money, and get yourself some wonderful beef jerky. Kevin, before we get to the playoffs and all that kind of good stuff, let's do one more Council Curse tracker for 2024 fantasy baseball season. Just in case you haven't been here all season long, Craig Counsell's the worst human being in the world. And the baseball gods looked at what Craig Counsell did in leaving his hometown Milwaukee Brewers for the arch nemesis, the Chicago Cubs. The baseball gods looked at this move in disgust, and they said, I'm sorry, Craig Counsell, but you cannot succeed. And so all year long, the Cubs have been cursed as a result of Craig Counsell, and we have followed along with that curse all season long. And I really think the only way that you can end the season with this curse is to look at the Chicago Cubs sitting, not in the playoffs,
That's right.
watching Craig Counsell's former team, the Milwaukee Brewers, make a World Series run. And to everyone's disbelief, Pat Murphy's going to win NL Manager of the Year. At least he should. And when he wins the World Series, everyone will be saying, Craig who? The next time Counsell is brought up. So the Counsell curse has been fun all season long, but what's more fun is watching the Cubs not make the playoffs after paying him all that money. And really, they just all season long disappointed. They had moments, I guess, where they did have some good stretches. But, I mean, you look at batting averages were down. You look at even Shota Imanaga, who started off hot, had a pretty big dip in the season. He did finish September pretty well also. But overall, man, the Cubs, I don't think there's a better word than disappointment for Chicago Cubs this year.
I totally agree with that. When you look at the standings, when the curse really becomes evident, is not only are they not in the playoffs, because a lot of teams don't make the playoffs, and it happens, but the Cubs are 10 games out of first.
Mm-hmm.
Not 4, not any of that. 10 games out of first. So you talk about slamming on the brakes on I said that the Cubs had some things that going into this year that might be, they might have going on. All that was just totally, the car had no engine, okay, and it was dropped out somewhere back about a couple miles, and the car just stopped. So, as you know, as I've mentioned before, I've been to several Cubs games. That I grew up not far from there. But I am not disappointed one iota on what happened with the Cubs. They, brought it on themselves. So, oh well for you.
Do you know what the Cubs' record was last season?
I do not, I must admit.
Okay. Do you know what the Cubs' record is this season?
I do know for a fact that they're 10 games out of first. I do know
they are
that.
83 and 79 this season.
Okay.
Last season, they were 83 and 79. They literally have the exact same record that they had last year. Their win total from Vegas this year was 84.5. Obviously, they did not go over that. No. I'm in disbelief, honestly, with the amount of talent they had. I think Craig Counsell's a good baseball manager. I cannot believe that they didn't win this division. I cannot believe that they got the exact same record as they did last year. I am shocked, honestly shocked. That they did not do better than they did. Now, again, they're over 500. Some people could see that as a good thing, but
I don't. They
brought Craig Counsell in to be the division champs, and they did not get there. So,
especially when you consider this is the worst division in the National League, right?
Yes.
Because Milwaukee's that was a great story, no question, but nobody else won more than 83 games in this division.
Right.
No one. And then you had two good teams that had won 77 or less games. So you're telling me you could not manage this division better than 83 and 79. So, go ahead and pack up your lockers and go home and, do some redress or something and maybe go down to the Jordan River, and get cleansed, something. Because this didn't work at all for them.
Right. It did not. Milwaukee, by the way, their over-under coming into the year was 77.5.
Wow.
And they beat their
I didn't buy that, by the way.
No.
Right from the start.
And they won one more game than they did last year, so they improved slightly there as well. But yeah, that was when I saw that win total, I thought, man, I mean, I know I was a little skeptical coming into the season, but not 77 wins skeptical. So, needless to say. All right, let's talk about, though, how things are shaking down in Major League Baseball. There was a game canceled today, Houston and Cleveland. I don't even believe they're going to play that one. They're just going to let it go.
No.
Mean anything to any standings, anything like that.
The AL playoffs are set.
Yeah. All games are final today. So that means tomorrow there's the doubleheader, Atlanta and the Mets. Atlanta could have clinched today with a win over the Royals. They lost 4-2. Atlanta could have clinched today had Arizona lost, but Arizona won 11-2. Right. So, and the Mets won 5-0 today against the Brewers. So The Mets and the Diamondbacks kept themselves definitely alive in this race, and they will play tomorrow. Let's look real quick, though, at the American League.
Okay.
Yankees win it all as far as best record in the AL. Guardians come in second, 2 games back. Houston wins the West with 88 wins. Again, call me crazy, but watch out for Houston.
Okay.
Baltimore, they've been in for a little bit. They're in at 91 wins. And then the Royals and the Tigers end at the same record. Royals got the tiebreaker, so they will be the higher seed. So it'll be Houston versus Detroit, Baltimore versus Kansas City. Listen, I know I just said don't sleep on Houston, but I don't think the Tigers are the team they were hoping to draw in this matchup.
I don't think so either. And because Houston's the team I had also going, and I predicted that before September started. So, but I do believe that there was one person that was talking positively about Detroit and Kansas City this year, and so that
Who
person
could that have been?
obviously knows what he is talking about. But this sets up a great matchup, right? Because you've got Tariq Scoble, who I just talked about, going up against probably Framber Valdez, I would imagine.
Yeah.
And so the best pitcher in the American League going up, I like that matchup. So Houston's gonna. They better hope they win that first game, because you don't want to be staring at a deficit even if you're at home. So I am really looking forward to that playoff series. And the Royals kind of stumbled a little bit, but they got some things together towards the end. And then playing Baltimore. Baltimore has some things to prove to me.
Yeah.
After last year, because they won a division last year and started off playing the Texas Rangers and got swept at home. So they've got some things to prove. So there's some exciting baseball in this first round that I am really looking forward to in the American League.
Yeah, so Valdez has been announced as the starter for
Okay.
Houston. The Detroit has
makes sense.
not actually named their starter just yet. You would assume it would be Schoolball, but either way, he'll obviously pitch in one of those 3 games. And Baltimore, Burns is lined up to start. Kansas City has yet to announce their starting pitcher either. Talking about Baltimore, they're a really talented team. They've got good young guys. They've got good veterans. But man, the pitching has just not been where it needs to be.
No.
Corbin Burns, the big addition, he has the potential to show up and be lights out here in this game, but he also has the potential to get blown up at the same time. So the Orioles scare me. I think they can beat the Royals, and the Royals have played really well. The pitching has been really good, all that kind of stuff. I do think Baltimore can beat the Royals. Houston, I still think, is the team that's going to win this series, but I think Detroit makes it really interesting. It might even be a 2-1 game, and maybe even Houston sweeps it, but it's not. I don't see blowouts happening in that series. But I trust the Detroit pitchers. I don't trust the offense. In Houston, I trust the offense, and I know they've got the potential, and their pitchers have been much better as of late. I just think Houston's the better overall team, but I think Detroit's going to make it fun at the very least.
I agree with that 100%. So do I go with Detroit, and Detroit, right, on August 10th, they were 10 games below 500. But since then, August 11th, they've got the best record in baseball, not the American League, not in their division, but all of baseball. So they come in hot. Of course, it helps when you play the Chicago White Sox at the end.
Sure.
But doesn't matter who they played; they're hot. And so after Tariq Scoble, I think there's a huge deficit in their pitching versus Houston there. So they've got to win when he's on the mound. Otherwise, they can cancel this pretty quickly.
100%. In the National League, Dodgers, of course, best record. Even though the Padres made it close there at the end, Dodgers took it no problem. Phillies are the 2 seed, 95 wins this season. They only won 4 out of their last 10. You talked about that earlier. They're not necessarily hot coming into it, but an incredibly talented team. And we know Philadelphia knows how to perform in October as well. Milwaukee gets the 3 seed. I was really hoping they'd get one of the 2 seeds, but I don't know that it hurts or help. I think it might help them to keep playing versus get the time off, because it seems like when they've had time off, they've kind of come out slow. So maybe they can keep things rolling that way. Padres in as well at 93 wins. They're in as the 4 seed. And then you've got the Braves, Mets, and Diamondbacks all sitting right here. Let's see here. I have not looked at it. I think if they split.
I've got the whole scenario.
Okay, give it to us.
Okay, so right now, if one of the teams sweeps, they're in.
And the Diamondbacks are in?
Yeah, right. And the Diamondbacks are in. If one of them splits, then the Diamondbacks are out.
Okay.
So here we go. If it's a split, Atlanta's the number 5 seed, and New York is the number 6 seed.
Okay.
If one of them sweeps, whoever that is the number 5 seed, and Arizona is number 6. So there's all kinds of scenarios that could happen tomorrow. And so it'll be interesting to see whoever wins that first game, they're in. Yeah. So do they say, okay, and then punt the second game? Or because they're a division foe and they don't want them in the playoffs to begin with, do they slam down the throttle and see what happens? And
I think it all comes down to what they have to do in the first game. If they get a starting pitcher that just goes wild, they don't need to use the bullpen. That's one thing. But when you're starting a playoff series, I think the next day, right? They play a doubleheader Monday and they play their first series on Tuesday. I
believe that's the case. There are playoff games that start on Tuesday. That much I do know.
So Tuesday is
You can have no starting pitchers because you use them both on Monday.
They all play Tuesday. So Brewers are the first game on Tuesday at 5:30. Then Astros Tigers are Astros Tigers are at 2:30 on Tuesday. Then Orioles Royals are at 4:00 on Tuesday. Brewers are at 5:30 on Tuesday, and the Padres are at 8:30 on Tuesday. So all of them are playing. So, oh my goodness! So you got double headers.
That's right.
Man.
And then right,
whoever wins the first one is not gonna play a soul, and not gonna pitch anybody in the second game that they don't have to. I would assume they all have someone available that they can put out there to start and not kill, not hurt their rotation at all. Yeah, that's nuts.
Yeah, so that leads me to believe, because I had seen that they had said we're not pitching Chris Sale until we're facing elimination. So I would assume that they won't pitch him in game 1 because it's not an elimination game. If they win that, then they'll pass on him in that second game. So if they lose, then they'll have to throw him in the second game. So that's going to be interesting.
I think he's pitching the first one, because when you say an elimination game, like, why even put yourself in that spot? Why put yourself in a spot where you could have an elimination game? Like, you go out there on that first game and you do everything in your power to win it. I'm pulling up right now to see. Right now, they've got Schwellenbach as the starter for game 1 for Atlanta.
That's the way I'd play it.
And they've got Sale listed as the starter for game 2. So I think you're right then. If Schwellenbach gets the win, Sale won't pitch in game 2.
No, if let's say that whoever wins that is going to have to fly to San Diego.
Right.
So you play a doubleheader and then get on a plane and fly all the way over to the West Coast and play the next day. So that's, puts San Diego way out in front. It doesn't matter who they play in that series. San Diego's got the advantage big time.
What I do is if I'm Atlanta and I win game 1, I'm taking a select number of pitchers and putting them on a plane right then and there and say, you guys are headed out west. And we'll deal with the batters later, but I need my pitcher. Go ahead and send the catcher out there with them and a couple relievers. Get them on a plane as soon as game 1's done. That's how you guys go ahead and get out there. Because 3 games in 2 days is tough. really tough.
Really
so yeah, I
tough.
think whoever
So
wins it, I don't think there's going to be a whole lot of valuable people playing in the second game. They'll
for either
have
team,
offensive
yeah,
guys
either
out
team.
there, but yeah.
I agree that.
And the Mets do not have starters listed for tomorrow, so I'm not sure who's up for the Mets these days. But yeah, Diamondbacks are just sitting there, hoping for a sweep. That's all that they can do right now.
That's
And
right.
they had their chances, and
They did, and they're a disappointment to me coming down the stretch because we both liked Arizona, and so but they tripped up, and so I don't think they're going to get in because I don't see a team
Arizona
sweeping.
is the highest scoring team in Major League Baseball this year.
Right.
And to do that, and actually they were the highest scoring team by a fair amount. I think second was the Dodgers, and they're 44 runs less. So you do that, and then you look at the other end, and they've allowed 788 runs. No one else in the playoffs in the National League, and I'm checking, no one else in the playoffs in the American League have allowed more than 700 runs on the season. So, I'm sitting here as a Brewers fan thinking I want to play the Mets, but you look at that and you go, well, maybe, Corbin Carroll had a good September too. So maybe that's still, I'm not the kind of guy that says, pick who you want to play. No, you let fate do its job and you play whoever you get.
That's right.
You don't wish for somebody, but yeah, I don't
At least
know.
not publicly.
Right. Right. Yeah. So it's going to be interesting. Tomorrow is going to be a lot of fun. I'll be paying attention to that throughout the day. And we'll talk about it on the midweek show. The Sports Stove podcast on the midweek show. We'll talk about it. And of course we'll be recapping some playoff games come Wednesday, but can't believe we're at playoff baseball time, Kevin. It's wild.
And we're ready. I'm ready.
Yeah. All right. Anything else to add in this segment?
That covers it.
Okay.
So if you missed any part of that, you're going to go back to the start of this particular segment and watch it because we covered the entirety of playoff baseball.
Paul Skeens, good baseball player.
Paul Skeens is a good baseball player, and if we had talked about rookies of the postseason, he's my selection.
Yeah.
And I thought maybe they were going to scale him back, which they did not do until yesterday. And so we've got a lot of time to think about this, but I think Paul Skeens has got to go up to the top of the list as far as pitchers going into next year.
100%. All right. That's it for our call to the pin. Check out righteousfelon.com. I promise you won't regret it. Use the code STOVE15, STOVE15. You get 15% off your purchase. And by the way, shout out to Righteous Felon. They're with me on all the programs that I do. And, Sea Geeks just here. Belly Up Fantasy is just here. I do 2 other shows, and Righteous Felon has been with me on those shows also. And huge fan. And listen, I love jerky, and there's a local jerky, company here where I live. It's not Righteous Felon, and I'm just telling you, Righteous Felon's amazing. So check them out. Stove15 is the code. Get 15% off at righteousfelon.com. All right, final segment of the day. Let's go into fantasy. Our fantasy focus is presented by BellyUpFantasySports.com. You want to head over there for articles regarding all fantasy sports. Fantasy football, of course, is blazing right now. Fantasy basketball and hockey will get things rolling soon. And of course, fantasy baseball all year long while starting Hey, I'm back.
All right.
All right. Can you hear me, Kev?
I can hear you.
Okay. All right. So BellyUpFantasySports.com. It's where you get all of Kevin Wilson's articles as well. All right, Kevin, we're talking about guys that improved their stocks this season next year to get drafted higher than they did this year. And let's just get things rolling. Who do you got?
Okay, so I decided I wasn't going to go with we just talked about Paul Skeens. Obviously, he went from being a guy that could have been added, and unless you had one of those leagues that you can park guys that are in the minors, whatever. But So I didn't go there. But and there's a guy that you liked a lot and your dad liked a lot, and that's Matt Chapman of the San Francisco Giants. And he was a guy I was not high on at all. But when you look at this, 27 homers on the season, 78 RBIs. He even stole 15 bases. It's 96 runs. The Giants believed in him and gave him a big contract. So I could see him getting, and he was not drafted. Okay. So first of all, he wasn't drafted. So I really think that this is a guy that is going to get taken he's going to get drafted way early. Maybe, I don't know, probably not in the maybe 10th round or so. But even then, this is a guy who really increased his fantasy value. So, and as a third baseman, I really like that a lot going into next year.
I like that one, Kevin, for sure. And I went with another undrafted guy who next year might be a second round pick, possibly.
Okay.
Goes from undrafted to second round pick, and that's San Diego's Jurickson Profar. I mean, just a season for him. He's right now 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th in outfielders, fantasy outfielders right now. And he's above Schwarber. He's above Merrill, his young teammate. He's above Mookie Betts, how he was injured. So you take away the injury, probably not, but still he is there. Again, undrafted in our league and top 7 in outfielders this year. I think he's going to jump way up the draft boards next year. Heck of a season for Jurickson Profar.
I agree with that because I've got him on my list, and he scored more than 90 runs. Yeah. And so started the All-Star game. And so I don't know what else more you could ask for out of him. So he's going to definitely catapult up the list of draftees because you got to like the team. You got to like their lineup, as we've talked about. So I really, really, really like him going into next year as well.
Yeah, he had 10 steals, so double-digit steals. Not a ton, but that's something. 85 RBIs, 9 runs. He batted .279. Yeah, good season. Now, he's still got one game. He's still playing. No, he didn't play today. So, yeah, he's done, and at least for the fantasy season. So, yeah, that's my top guy for sure when it comes to the batters. Who else you got? Because I got another guy, because you said Profar was on your list, so I'm going to take another one. And that's Boston outfielder Jarren Duran. Again, top 4 outfielder, right? The kid goes nuts this year, 110 runs. He hit .284, 34 stolen bases, 20 home runs on a team that at times was really bad, other times was good. But again, you put him in Boston. You look at his draft stock. This year, he was taken number 189 overall in our league. And next year, he definitely is he'll be a top second round draft pick, I think, also.
I agree because I've got him on my list as well. and as you mentioned, 189th. And when I was looking at this, he was number 1 fantasy outfielder. Number 1. Okay, because not only did he hit 20 homers, he also had 34 stolen bases. He had 108 runs, 188 hits, 48 doubles, and 14 triples.
Gracious.
So, when it comes to getting on base and getting you extra base hits, he was right there. So I've got him on my list as well. Go from 189th to the number 1 fantasy outfielder when there's so many good outfielders is saying something. So
yeah,
he's definitely, depending on the size of your league, you could make an argument he could go in the first round.
Sure.
So keep an eye on him. So he wasn't on our list when we started talking about outfielders at all, 189th. But next year, you can be sure he'll be on that list.
I'm going to pull up. Let me see if I've got I've got my rankings here. I'm looking in outfielders on my list, and he is not in my top 5 tiers, and he is not in my sleeper, and he is not in anything on my list for outfielders at the beginning of this season. So for sure. Do you have any other batters? I've got one more.
I do. Let's see. I do have one guy, Josh Smith of the Texas Rangers. The Rangers pretty much crashed. Okay. But he was not drafted. And he's a guy who plays all over the infield, outfield, DH. So plug him in wherever you need him. Over double-digit homers, double-digit stolen bases, and so he had an 8-game hit streak in September. So he didn't slow down, and so this guy is somebody that I really like. And so when I look at versatility, he's not going to go that high. I'll grant you that, but still going from undrafted. And he was the number 13th ranked shortstop, and you won't believe it's number 13 at short, number 13 at third, and number 13 at outfield.
Wow.
So wherever you needed him, he could plug him in. So he went from undrafted to 13th. So he is a guy that I would definitely look forward to drafting next year.
All right, so my last guy is a guy that we've talked about on this show. We talked about him before the season. We talked about him last season. Kevin hyped him up as the guy to watch last season. I think at the All-Star break it was that you begin to hype this guy up. This is a guy that I've always really, really liked. And next year I won't like him as much because he'll probably be a Dodger next year. Probably starting shortstop for the Dodgers next year. And that is Willy Adames. And Willie has had the season he needed to have in Milwaukee this year. He was drafted 177th overall in our fantasy league. He's ending the year a top 4 shortstop. And like I said, next year he'll be in the stronger lineup because the Brewers aren't going to pay him. And I want to strangle somebody in the Brewers organization for this. But he's probably going to be a Dodger next year, needless to say. But Willy Adames, again, I always like to try to get Willy Adames in the leagues that I'm in. He has a lot of power from the shortstop position, but I'm in a league that has another Brewers fan, and then I also have another guy that's he's kind of tries to pick guys out when I'm getting ready to draft them, and Dan D'Amico. And Dan picked up Willy Adames at 177. I was actually kind of loaded at shortstop this year, so nonetheless, Willy Adames, he will get drafted higher than 177 next year. I think, especially if he ends up going to the Dodgers, I think you'll see his stock rise drastically in fantasy drafts next year.
Okay, I agree with that, and we shall see if he does, in fact, wind up on the Dodgers. But there's a pitcher that I'm going to go with here, which I was not. The cat doesn't like my flag, but that's too bad. But you can probably see there's a battle royale going on behind me between the wife and the cat. But anyways, there's a pitcher. I didn't like him. I didn't like him when he was at the trading deadline. And so, but he went to the Houston Astros, and I'm talking about UC Kikuchi.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Houston turned this guy around big time. So if he stays on the Houston Astros, and he actually went 228th, which he deserved to go, by the way. All right. He was dropped, okay, in our league, okay. And then when he went to Houston, he made 10 starts, pitched into the 6th or later in all of them. Okay. So he was 5-1, 76 strikeouts, 14 walks, but he walked 4 in his last 5 games. So this guy is, we talked about the pitching, Framber Valdez, and then UC Kikuchi following up behind him, went from being a guy that crashed and burned to somebody that could actually put Houston in the next round. So
yeah,
if he stays on Houston, which I can't fathom for a moment that wouldn't be the case, I went from not liking him whatsoever to being a big, big fan of his.
I think we got to talk about Chris Sale as well. Coming into this year,
Absolutely.
Chris was drafted 101st in our league. Okay. The talk is he going to be Chris Sale? Is he going to be a lesser version of Chris Sale? Is he going to be any good whatsoever? It's been so long since we saw him healthy. The way he pitched this year, I really think Sale is going to be a top 5 pitcher drafted next year. You got Shohei, you got to throw into that mix. Supposedly, you got Skubal is going to be in that mix. Wheeler's probably in that mix as well. Maybe even a Dylan Cease. Dylan Cease had a really good year again this year too. But I think Chris Sale is going to be a top 3, top 5 pitcher next season. Drastically. Again, it's not like we knew Chris Sale had it. We just didn't know if he still had it. And so he
right.
proved that he did this year, and we're going to see that him get drafted a whole lot earlier next year.
I agree with that 110%.
I've got one more. Do you got any other pitchers?
Just one guy to add that the curse is now going to be broken, I suppose. Shota Imanaga,
Yep.
okay, went from 192nd to the 8th fantasy starting pitcher in his first year. So 15-3 for Curse. Maybe he could go 22-5 next year without the curse. So no way he goes 192nd at all. So he's going to definitely move up the board. And so I really like him going into next year a lot. So he's a guy that there's no issues with me at all. So I would go into next year quite pleased if I had him on my fantasy team.
I'll have a hard time putting a Cub on my team, but he is good. Yes. I went with Michael King, San Diego Padres pitcher, came over from the Yankees, drafted 183rd by the worst team in our fantasy league. But this was not the worst player on his team for sure. And Michael King, there was a little bit of question mark behind kind of what he would be with the move to San Diego and young talent and all these kinds of things. He put out a great showing, 201 strikeouts, a 2.95 ERA, 13-9 was his record, but that obviously is not always on the pitcher. And so a really good season for Michael King. I think he's another guy that's going to pop up a solid, maybe even 4 rounds higher than what he went this year, and be a good option for guys that are looking for some value pitchers next year. I think he's kind of you're going to have to fight some guys who like him so much they draft a little earlier maybe than they should even. I think Michael King going to get a big go next season. All right, and I'm back.
Okay. Can't argue with that selection
come
either.
on, Internet. I need you for a few more minutes.
That's right. And so, yeah, Michael King, once again, on San Diego, strong team. So, got to like him going into next year. He was the guy that I was kind of focused on going into the season. Didn't know if they were saying they're going to use him as starter, which they actually did do. So, I like that. So, yeah. I see no reason why he can't have a big year next year.
Agreed. So we're winding down the fantasy season. We do have another day left. Me and Kevin have been battling hard these last 2 weeks. I currently hold the lead, Kevin. I don't know what tricks you got up your sleeve for tomorrow.
You know what? I don't believe I have any tricks up my sleeve. So all hail the conquering hero right here. As you took the early lead, and every move that I made, you countered with every move that you made. So 2 games isn't going to make any difference. So you're going to take home the crown. So if you I don't know if you do that, you should, you won the league, you should get yourself a trophy.
Yeah. I got these are basketball trophies, but I'll find one for sure. So shout out to Michael Harris. He gave me 58 fantasy points, and that's not counting tomorrow's games. 58 fantasy points. Aaron Judge gave me 50 fantasy points. Brad Miller, who, by the way, Bryce Miller, excuse me, from Seattle. He gave me 48 fantasy points in this series. And then Corbin Burns gave me 44. So I had 4 guys that scored more than your top guy, which was Bibby from Cleveland. Your guys just kind of fell asleep going into this matchup a little bit. And when you needed them to step up, they let you down, Kevin. I feel bad for you.
Well, it's the way it works in the world at large. So as I said, I congratulate you on the win. And it was, for you were pretty much, pretty strong the whole way. And I lost my number 5 pitcher, not the number 5, but the number 5 overall drafted pitcher. Right. Early on, so that sent me off spiraling off a little bit, but came down the stretch, beat our last season champion in the semifinals to get
That's
here.
right.
And so, it was a very satisfying fantasy season this year, and I was just glad to be a part of it.
Kevin, I sat here and I was, I finished second the last 2 years, and I admit it gets old after a while. And, being able to, I was super excited to make it to the championship again, but I was so excited when you took down last year's champ. And I knew this was going to be a lot of fun. You and I going up against each other. I knew the kind of player you were, and I know all the work that we've put into it this season to come down to the two of us was pretty cool, I thought, and exciting because we'd met in the playoffs previously. And which was all I enjoyed it in the past. But
you have to say, I don't know if I enjoyed getting kicked in the shins, but so many times. But
yeah,
it happens.
But I'll tell you, we sit here and do this show. Right over here to my right, my youngest is over here playing on the Xbox, and he doesn't listen to everything that we say, but he does listen to some of it as we're talking and things like that. And it's been fun because this year both of my boys got into fantasy baseball also. And now we're doing fantasy hockey, or we're doing that with you and as well.
We need some people. So if you're out there and you're into fantasy hockey, get with me.
Yeah. We need several people, don't we? We'll get that.
We need 5 people to make our 10-team league. And so when the season's creeping up on us.
Yeah.
It's happening real soon.
Games. Yeah.
Yeah.
But anyways, this has been a fun season. I think that
it has been.
We've put in the work, and I think it's our audience has grown this year. We sure appreciate people tuning in.
That's right. Absolutely. Even though we had to expose our strategies and who we were going to pick up, and so our league mates dove in there and got them before we did because we were talking about it. So, but all that was fun. So
it was. And Kevin, we haven't talked about this yet, but my plan for next season is to actually open 2 spots in our league for viewers, and open it up to our viewers. And if we got a couple of viewers that want to get in and join the league with us and kind of start expanding our reach a little bit that way, and we'll let some viewers get into. I think that'll be a lot of fun to add to it as well. We do not have a start date for next season yet. So the best thing to do is follow me on social media at Sports Stove.
Right.
And once we hit the new year, at some point January or February, we will start up preseason rankings and all that kind of stuff, and get things rolling from there. We'll probably do a different day. We've done Sundays all season this season. We'll probably do a different day next year when we get around to it. But again, we'll announce all this on social media and keep everyone up to date on it. And I'm already making plans for next season, how we want to do it and try to make it better as well. Although I think it's pretty good, Kevin, to be honest with you. I listened to a few others just to make sure we're kind of keeping up with everybody, and our downloads may not equal theirs, but I think our content exceeds theirs as well.
I would put our content up against anybody's in the field. Okay,
I like it.
So
yeah,
that's just how I feel about it. But because I check out some of the other ones too.
Yeah,
and they march in behind us, in my opinion.
Yeah. So anyways, the plan is to be back next year. We will, the best thing for you to do is to subscribe to the Sports Stove YouTube channel. And this is where this will stream all next year. And you can tune in there, and of course, other content going up there as well. Next year, we're going to be doing more videos, not just our live show, but we're planning on putting out some content, just the video, little, I guess, reels, and I know I sound really old when I'm talking about this, but some little clips and things like that out there to help you as well. And we'll put our championship run to the test next year as we go at it again as well. So it's been a lot of fun for sure. Kevin, tell everybody about what you're dropping here. I know you've got some football articles that have been coming out.
That's right. So you can expect that because I did my first, because I've been doing some Thursday night sits articles, but I did my first one for the whole Sunday weekend, And that is the expectation. I'll be doing that going forward every week from here till who knows when. But and also there's a new show. Travis is the guy that just joined us in the Belly Up Fantasy website, and he's planning to start a show Tuesdays. We're not too sure on the how that's going to work out yet, but I'm going to be a part of that show.
Okay.
And so I'm looking forward to that. You can look forward to some announcements in that area.
And that's a fantasy football show?
Yeah, it's going to be a fantasy football show. And like I said, we're not, maybe on Tuesdays we'll concentrate on who to pick up off waivers. Who knows? But that's the plan right now, to have a new show added to the Belly Up lineup. And then, like I said, you can expect on Friday, I will drop my start sit article, and there's still 2 games tomorrow getting ready to go on, and one of my starters happens to be a Seahawk. All right, so if you're still looking for some starters for tomorrow's game, you might want to check that out on the Belly Up Fantasy website. So, but every Friday, look for an article, start sit, and we'll see how it works.
I love it, man. I love it. So I've announced this on, well, I don't know that I've announced it on any show, actually, Kevin. I put it out there in the social media world. But my family is moving in March. We are moving to the state of Wisconsin. And so that's part of the in the air, trying to figure out what day we're going to do the show and all that kind of stuff, just because once we get moved, we've got to figure out what's going to be best for us up there. And we've been living in Kentucky for 10 years. And so it's a big move for us. We're super excited about it. But I think it's going to give me more time ultimately as well to put into this. And so anyways, we're excited about that. And we'll get that. We'll start the show before we move. We'll start next season before we move, because if we wait till March, we're behind the 8 ball. So.
Absolutely. Yeah, we'll be way behind.
Yeah, so we'll definitely get things going before then. But yeah, we'll move in March and get we'll be up there about 30 minutes from the Brewers, and hoping to get to several games throughout the year as well. Looking forward to that. Maybe possibly even getting credentialed up there to cover the Brewers a little bit too, which would be a lot of fun. But we'll see. We'll see how it all shakes down for sure. That being said, it's been a heck of a season. I'm excited about. I really am proud, and I know that maybe no one cares, but I'm really proud of what we did this year and the show that we put on. And I think we did the network proud. I think that we did our listeners proud as well, and we appreciate people tuning in, listening, taking our advice.
That's why we do this. We don't do this for ourselves.
Right.
We do it
I don't need to tell myself what to do.
No.
Yeah.
Especially because we give away, like I said, our secrets.
Yeah.
Right here out in the open.
Yeah.
So that our league, and it's happened. Our league mates do that.
We had some things, and I lost my paper. I had down. We were comparing 2 guys this season, and it was JT Realmuto, I think, wasn't it? And somebody else, or was it not? No.
No, it was
Austin Riley? No,
it was Matt Chapman was one of the third basemen, and the other one, wasn't it? And the other one was the Arizona third baseman. Isn't that what we were talking about?
Suarez. Was it Chapman and Suarez? I don't remember.
Is that what it was? It was Suarez and somebody else. I can't quite remember.
Yeah.
That's who we were talking about.
No, it makes
Suarez
me mad.
was one of them. I do remember that.
Yeah. I don't remember what he ended up being, but I had at the beginning of the season, I had a guy that I didn't tell people about, that I was like, I'm holding on to this one till after our draft. And it was Miguel Garcia from Kansas City. He did not end up like a top 10 or anything like that guy. Let's see what he ended up doing this year. He ended up with 7 home runs, 37 stolen bases, batted .231 as well. So anyways, did not end the season well. Started the season well, did not end the season well.
So as far as Eugenio Suarez is concerned, 253 average, 29 homers, 99 RBIs, and 88 runs scored.
Not
so
bad.
Very successful season. So thank you, Eugenio, for confirming my faith in him. And he had, as a matter of fact, he had 3 hits today, including a homer, 2 RBIs, and 2 runs scored. So
nice.
He brought home the bacon to make sure Arizona didn't go home just yet.
Yeah.
So
I like it. I like it. So what we'll do is next year, same general idea as this year. I don't think there'll be any major changes, but yeah, we'll start with preseason rankings. We like to do our draft live so that people can tune into it and kind of hear philosophies behind why people are choosing who they're choosing. You can even go way back in time and find that draft from this year if you want to.
That's right. It's all there it's all there on YouTube.
It's all there. But anyways, we try to hold very little back. And I think if you tune in to any show, you'll find that out as well. So I'm really proud of what we did. Kevin, I'm always grateful for you and your willingness to pitch in and help. I'm excited about what we've got going forward for next season as well, and begin planning and preparing for that. This year, I think you only missed maybe one show. I missed 2 shows this year.
One show, right, when I was coming back from visiting my family.
Yeah.
And I was in the air on a Sunday night. But other than that, I was right here.
Yeah, you did more shows than me this year. So
even when we had no air conditioning, I figured out a way to get on the air. So
that's right. Yeah, so I guess all the money that I made this year, I should give at least 60% of it to you.
That's right.
For all the big bucks that we raked in this year. So, but again, shout out to SeatGeek, Righteous Felon Jerky, Belly Up Fantasy Sports, all for being with us. The next year, I will see. I feel pretty confident Righteous Felon will be with us again next year, but we got a few months before that kicks up. So at this point, everyone just needs to enjoy playoff baseball. I think it is
playoff baseball.
One of the more enjoyable things that we have in America is playoff baseball. So
playoff baseball, as you mentioned, Tuesday, you can just go into a cocoon, right? First game, and then come out whenever the games are over, and maybe you take a bathroom break in there somewhere along the way. But there's no reason to watch anything other than baseball starting on Tuesday.
Agreed. Agreed. So right now, you got Houston and Detroit. The winner plays Cleveland. Baltimore and Kansas City. The winner plays the Yankees. Milwaukee, and they'll either play the Mets or the Diamondbacks. And the winner plays Philadelphia. And then San Diego will either play the Braves or the Mets, and the winner plays Los Angeles on there. So maybe, Kevin, we'll have to come back in the NLCS and do a Brewers Dodgers breakdown for the NLCS.
I'm up for it. I'm up for it. So
we'll see how it all shakes down, though.
That's right.
For sure. All right, Kevin, anything else you want to add before we sign off?
Oh man, I think that I don't know if we gave any more content or both our heads might explode, but like I said, we put it out there, and we appreciate everybody that came along the journey with us, and just be there, be there next year with us again. There's a lot still to come.
Definitely. We'll have another Sports Stove podcast on Wednesday. Me and Dad will have our NFL picks. We'll talk Major League Baseball playoffs, as well as some college football. And then Thursday night at 8 o'clock, the Sports Stove Local Hour, Jonathan Duff, the long snapper from EKU, joins me. We'll be talking with some EKU football players about their game this past Saturday. They've got a bye week coming up, so we'll talk about that a little bit as well. So follow us on social media. Kevin's on Twitter, X, at Kevin62 WILSEA. You can find me at Sports Stove as well, and we'll be there for that. It's been a fun season, from the runner-up to the champ, and we sign off for this season of the Sports Stove Fantasy Baseball Show. Until next time, we'll see you around the Sports Stove.
See you later.